Okay, so I've just went just a bit further here, and now I'm going to start going a little bit quicker. I think I cleaned up my mesh to where it'll operate a little bit faster. So here you can see me just kind of quickly drawing these out. So this is now performing much quicker than a second ago. And I'll just go ahead and start completing some of this mesh a little bit more. So now what I'm looking at over here is basically that brow. And notice that I'm kind of creating this edge that's following from the ridge of the nose up into that brow. That's like, it's something that I'm purposely doing just to kind of get like a nice edge defining that brow line. We can start moving along here a little bit faster. So you can see that the process for this is pretty painless. You know, I'm looking at the whole thing in a very big picture way by stepping back and seeing everything all together. Now here's a cool function that you're about to see. You see all this messy topology here. Messy in the sense that it's like just placed not very cleanly. If I hold down Shift, you'll see that the cursor basically turns into this relax function. And if I just start brushing over this, it'll essentially just average out all of these points. This is mind-blowing type of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you know, back in the day, we had to do all this stuff manually. There was just no good tools for this. There was a relax brush before, but didn't operate in this type of way. So here I can go ahead and just quickly kind of average out those points. And as you can see, I'm starting to develop a pretty clean topology for this character. So let's continue on with some of these thoughts here. I think one of the things I'm going to want to do is figure out a good solution for controlling all this. Let's start to drag all this stuff in. Now let's say I want to move this in without having to like painfully move everything one by one. One thing that I can do, if I hit B on my keyboard and just drag out this fall off, I'm holding down B to kind of drag this out, you get this colored fall off. And what's nice about that is I can essentially move things with a much larger area of influence, which is really, really nice. So this will allow me to create some space for all this stuff to come down. So now let's go create this. I'm just going to expand all this stuff out. And what I'm going to do is kind of work my way into the body a little bit. I most likely won't get this whole character done in the span of this recording, but we'll try to touch on like the key areas, and then I'm going to expect you guys to basically give this a stab. Okay. Many of you will have questions about just proper topology flow, and what I would like to see is you guys just kind of take your initial stab. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We can easily adjust things as needed. And there's always plenty of topology resources online, but my plan is not to teach you guys one standard typical layout. It's really to kind of equip you with the idea that whatever shapes you see on your character, you know, we need to figure out a plan for those shapes. That's why there's never one specific way of doing it. Okay, now I'm going to just continue building out here. And here's what's interesting. I don't know how long I've been doing this for the recording. Maybe it's been, I would say, not even half hour yet, or something along those lines. But you can see how quickly this face starts to come together. Here's a good tip when using quaddraw is, even though you see me making some really small polygons at times. I also like to make really broad ones in the way that you see me doing right now. Now they're getting smaller, but like these right here. And the reason I'll make really big ones is one, to take up more real estate quicker, and then two, I can go in here and now drop, just hold down Control and drop in new edge loops, and I can quickly make out, fill in that space with resolution. Now I'm just holding Shift, getting a nice relax on these surfaces. Clearly up here I need more resolution, burning down in this direction. So let's go ahead and do so. We're going to introduce one here, basically doubling up all this res on the top lid here. And the only reason I'm doing that is because if you look at this, this entire section for this character, this top lid, it's got a pretty broad scope. You know, it's a big wide curve, right? So even though I'm not a fan of just flooding my model with tons of geometry all at once, in this particular case, I already know that I'm going to need quite a bit of resolution in here to really uphold this shape properly. So let me just continue on here. Hold down Shift just to clean this stuff up here. Now, one thing to bear in mind when you do hold down Shift to relax your topology, really try to make it a point not to go over any areas that you don't want to move. I'm using a tablet, which does give me quite a bit of control. So when you guys are doing this, if you're using a tablet or the Cintiq at school, that's highly recommended, just so you have a little more degree of control there. It's feeling pretty good. Let's pull this out. Okay. All right, that's not too bad what I have going on there. So now, now what I'm going to do is jump into the nose. And since the nose is a more intricate area, I tend to kind of reserve it for towards the end of establishing the face. So let's start just kind of figuring out first what type of edge flow I need here. And one thing I know I'm going to need is something that basically kind of works its way along the shape of the face. So let's start getting that in place. So notice how I follow this trajectory. You know, really just trying to wrap this around. There's many ways to work out this area. I'm just basically doing it in the simplest way that I can kind of see it for what it is right now. I'm going to remove this one because I think what I'm going to do here is bring all this like that, introduce one more. There we go. I like that much better. So you can see that it all starts to, now as I did that right now, one thing I do want to try to do is keep that one-to-one relationship. So I'm going to drop one right here. And let's drop one right along where I see them up here, and then I'm going to remove the one I don't need. Very good. Let's go back up here. We'll most likely have one more edge right here, so I'm going to make a little space. Just kind of drop that in. It's getting to that point where I should probably delete history here pretty soon because it's starting to bog down just a little bit. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit W, just enter object mode, and I'll remove history. I'm going to go ahead and jump back in. All right. So let me get this nose worked out. Now, there's a couple of you that have a very stylized character, which means in the nose you're really dealing with some really unique shapes. Don't overcomplicate it when you're doing this. Just really think about the shape you need to support. Just create a nice edge flow that really just follows the shape. And you're going to make mistakes with it. That's okay. That's what I'm here for. We'll look at it together and see what we can do. So this particular area looks like I have one too many, so let's remove that. So I'm purposely bringing this stuff down just to make more space. And then I'll introduce one more loop. Now I made all this adjustment here on purpose because the next loop I introduce, I don't want it to go into the mouth or anywhere else. I just want it to go around like this. This is going to help me keep a nice tight edge over here. But two, it's only going to run around in this area versus running through the entire mouth, which I don't want right now. So now I did that. Now let's start kind of figuring out how to close this area here. And I think the easiest thing to do is just make like a radial patch. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop in these points. And what's really cool is once I have this, once I have all this squared away, I can then start creating much more intricate, cleaner detail because I'm going to have really nice topology and I won't be confined to like Dynamesh or anything like that. In ZBrush, it'll all really start to make sense, hopefully. Okay, let me figure out the best way to kind of close this off. There we go. So that's going to work pretty nicely there. Now, quaddraw, well, has a basic necessity built into the name, quaddraw, meaning it really plays nicely with quads. So you see me here, all my polygons that I'm establishing are quads, and that's something that you guys are also going to need to really consider. You know, we don't want to make triangles. We want to keep everything as quadrated out as we possibly can. Okay, so this whole thing worked out fairly nicely. Let me actually fill out the lips here real quick. Now for the lips, because we know we're going to keep them open, or not keep them open, right now they're obviously closed, but we're basically going to create an interior mouth, and you know, so that way I can open the mouth of this character and make some kind of fun expressions. In order to do that, I do need to have you know, good topology to support that. So this whole mouth will still have a way to open. It'll basically be open-ended. So here I am getting really into the nitty-gritty of this mouth corner. It'll get kind of tight there. Now all I want to do here is just create the lips without welding the center. So I am trying to organize these points as I go so that they play nice. Sometimes they'll try to auto stick to each other, or even worse. You see how right there it doesn't even highlight the polygon I want? So when that happens, I move a point over, then I create it. It's just its way of playing nicer. Sometimes you have to realign. There we go. So notice I'm not closing that edge. I'm keeping that edge open. It's very important that you guys see that. All right. So that's looking pretty good. Now let me go ahead and exit this. I'm gonna select this mesh and I'm gonna duplicate it. But I'm also gonna turn off my original live surface because I don't need anything to snap to it right now. And if I move this over for right now, and let's assign a shader to it. I think we got to create a new shader for it. So assign new material. All right. Let's hide the one we've been working on. So here we see this mesh, obviously crazy because it's a decimated mesh from ZBrush, but has the shape. And I'll turn on the grid, turn off the grid for a second. And now if I select this one and smooth it, you'll see we got the makings of a pretty nice replica of this mesh. And the best part about it is this is a very, very clean, animation-friendly mesh that I'm devising here. So I'm going to continue forward with this, but I'm going to put the face on hold, and I'm going to start talking about the body and ways that we'll approach the body. All right? Okay, give me 1 second to set that up, and I'll see you guys in just a moment.